Welcome. I'm James McFarland with the Urban League of Lexington, and I'd like to welcome you to Workforce Wednesday, brought to you by Truist Bank. Truist is formerly BB&T and Sons Bank. They're headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and they have over 27,000 locations, 2,700 locations in 17 cities. 73 of those locations are in Kentucky, with 6 of them being in Lexington. Thank you, Truist. Workforce Wednesday is a program that the Urban League of Lexington offers where they invite professionals to come in and present on career development information and ideas and or employment tips. Other programs that the Urban League offers are Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Word for beginners. They offer an open lab where they invite the public to come in and utilize the computers at the tech center to create resumes and or do job searches. Another program that the Urban League offers is computer networking. And this is a hands-on program where the people come in and they work with all the types of cables that are used in computer networking. And they also make patch cables with those type of cables. All this information can be found at the Urban League's website or Facebook page. Now, today's presenter for Workforce Wednesday is going to be Kia Arnold. Kia is the owner of 11 Keys Media and Creative, where they focus on to help small businesses and startups clarify their brand to lead to more visibility and ultimately more revenues and opportunities. Kia, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, James.
Hello, hey, there she is.
Everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, well, thank you for that introduction. So I am the creative, frugal fashionista, digital media enthusiast, maximizer, mentor, and mom. Good afternoon. My name is Kia Arnold, and like James said, I am the owner of 11 Keys Media and Creative. We are a brands, creative, and image consultant agency. And just to go a little bit further, so I am here to help businesses and individuals who want to help clarify their brand, tell their story, enhance their reach, and then ultimately influence their audience. And if you'd like to know more about what I do, please stay to the end of the presentation, and I'll have some links to my company so you can get in touch with me. And today, I guess I'll get right into it unless you have something else for me.
No, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna turn my video off and we're gonna leave it up to you, Ms. Kia Arnold.
Well, today I have the pleasure of presenting about social media and what it could say to your employers. So thank you to the Urban League of Lexington for this opportunity. I greatly appreciate it. I am from Lexington, but I bring you greetings all the way in Kansas City, Missouri. So I am here on vacation, but that did not stop me from being able to participate in Workforce Wednesday. So let me pull up my presentation. So my presentation is called Projection versus Reflection, what your social media could say about you to employers. And so I wanted to emphasize the could say because, that's very subjective. Employers can vary, but I will be providing some objective information for neutrality. So my objective is to educate, to give examples of different perspectives and to provide tips to enhance one's online presence. And the topics, they are not in any particular order, but social media statistics, employers in social media, the First Amendment in SNOPA, I think that's how you say it, and young professionals in social media. Also what your social media could say about you, and then personal branding. So before we get into it, I want to know, and you can drop this in the chat, yes or no, do you think it's fair for employers to check social media? And I'm not watching the live, so if James or whoever else can help control the the chat, and let me know what people are saying. I'd really appreciate that. So yes or no, do you think it's unfair? Do you think it's fair for social media, or excuse me, do you think it's fair for employers to check social media, particularly as a part of a background check? So I do see inside of Zoom that there are a couple of yeses. Are
Yeah,
there
I was
anything
gonna say, there's
on?
a couple of yeses up there that's showing up in Zoom.
Okay. So what about, we're on Facebook too. So is there anything in the chat in Facebook?
No, but I can't see that. Anissa's gonna have to monitor that one. So she said, no, there's nothing that showed up in the Facebook chats yet.
Okay. All right, so moving right along. So my title, projection and reflection have different meanings. So I wanted to break down the definitions, the working definitions that I'm using for this particular presentation. So projection, to convey an impression of to an audience or to others, or a mental image viewed as reality. So basically what you think, and in this case, your social media says about you based on what you display or choose not to display. And then reflection, an idea about something, especially one that is written down or expressed, or building conclusions, generalizations, analogies, comparisons, and evaluations. So basically what they think about your social media based on what they see. So the next question, I know I'm hitting you all with questions back to back, but what do you think your social media presence projects? Is there anything in the chat? Because I cannot see it.
Now, one of the things it says, I like to eat. I guess that's what they think their social media projects. And the other one is
Okay.
what I want people to think.
Okay. Well, for those,
I'm a
what do you
Christian.
think? What'd you say?
Another one says, I'm a Christian. So I guess
Okay.
people think.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
that's all we
still
have for
trying to
right
figure
now.
out what does the one mean by I'm
I
what
like to
people
eat.
think. No, not that I like to eat.
What I want people to think, I guess, I don't know what I guess their perception that they want them to think that they are. You know how social media, you can be anybody who you want to be.
Okay.
That's what I'm presuming.
Yes. All right. So next slide. We're going to talk about some social media statistics here. So the social media boom. These are the numbers from April 2021. So in a year span of time, 521 million new users have joined social media. The number of social media users around the world now equates to more than 70% of the eligible global population. And people spend roughly 15% of their waking lives using social media. So the average is people spend 2 hours and 22 minutes a day on social. So why do I bring that up?
Can I ask you a
Because,
question? Can I ask you a
yes,
question here?
yes.
Can you, for those of us who don't use social media much, what does social media consist of? What do people talk about when they say social media? What are they referring to?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because on this next slide, these are the world's most used social media platforms. So Facebook is by far the number one. So people that have Facebook accounts, YouTube accounts, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, the list goes on. Any of those sites to communicate with people around the world, that is social media. LinkedIn accounts are social media. So does that answer the question?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And right behind Facebook is YouTube. Everybody's on YouTube learning how to do different things. And I really feel that especially during the pandemic when everybody was cooped up at home, people were looking for ways to still be social and communicate because they couldn't do their normal activities. So, and then also a lot of churches had to go virtual. So they had to use platforms like Facebook, and people then had to get accounts so that they were able to access that information in those sermons. So now I'm gonna hit you with another statistic. So based on a career builder survey, more than, I want to say, no, it was 1,000 hiring managers, HR professionals, and others involved in the hiring process of a variety of different industries. 58% of them are checking candidates' social media accounts. And of those 58% that were surveyed, 50% want to ensure a candidate has a professional online persona. 34% want to see what other people are posting about the candidate. And then 24% of those surveys are checking social media to search for reasons not to hire someone. And yes, social media can be a part of a background check in addition to employment history, education, criminal record, financial history, medical history, and so on, even though you have to be careful with the medical history. An employer could very well ask you for your passwords to your account. And that could be at any time. So during the candidate phase, all the way to the offer, and you're on the job, employers can ask you for that information. But they may not discriminate against a candidate or an employee based on Title VII. And since we're in Kentucky, the Kentucky Civil Rights Act of 1966. But somebody's probably like, but wait a minute, they can't just check my social media. That's my First Amendment. I can say whatever I want to. So we're going to talk about the First Amendment for just a little bit. And just as a refresher, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So what does that mean in plain terms? Basically, the First Amendment guarantees the freedom of religion, expression, assembly, and the right to petition, and it guarantees the rights of citizens to assemble peaceably and to petition the government. It forbids Congress from promoting one religion over others and restricting an individual's religious practices, and prohibits Congress from restricting the press or the rights of individuals to speak freely. So to break it down even further, speech and press include talking, writing, printing, broadcasting, using the internet or other forms of expression. So social media would fall into that. And expression can also include symbolic forms, displaying flags, wearing armbands, burning crosses, etc. Protection, but it does not protect speakers against private individuals or organizations, such as private employers, colleges, landowners. So the First Amendment only protects you from government agencies. So federal, state, local, legislative, executive, judicial. So you can still get reprimanded for things that you post on your social media by your employer. That is the main thing I want to know. So some people are like, that's my freedom of speech, I shouldn't be penalized for that. You can if you work for a private employer.
Okay, let me ask you another question. Let's say they do check your social media. Is there a way that you can tell if the employer checked your social media?
In most cases, no. Just like whenever you're on Facebook, did you say that you don't use social media?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking these questions.
Okay. So like if you're on Facebook, somebody can view your page, but you can't see it. I know that if you look at somebody's story, so the stories stay up for 24 hours. They're up to 15-second video clips that you can have. You can see who looked at those. But as far as your actual pages, your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn pages, well, no, LinkedIn's a little different. You can't see that information. But for LinkedIn, if you have a membership, you can see those who viewed your profile. But I don't believe that it shows the analytical data, like how long they stayed on your actual page. That information I'm not too sure of, but I don't believe that it shows the details. And And YouTube, if somebody's on your YouTube channel, you can see the number of minutes or seconds that they were on there, but I don't know if it necessarily says who viewed it. So you would not know that information for sure unless your employer just flat out said that they're looking at your social media.
But you're saying they could go through and look at your social media and you would never know that they looked at it. And so you would never know if they made that decision on hiring you based on what they saw.
That is correct. And I'm going to get into more about employers and social media, but I will say that an employer does not have to disclose why they didn't choose you for a position either. So if it is social media related, they don't have to tell you that. They might, but they honestly do not have to give you an explanation.
All right, thanks.
So then if you're like, okay, well, I can't say First Amendment, what about SNOPA? And the SNOPA is the Social Networking Online Protection Act, which is a bill to prohibit employers and certain entities from requiring or requesting employees or certain individuals provide a username, password, or other means for accessing a personal account on a social networking website. Well, SNOPA was introduced originally in 2012 by Representative Elliot Engel of New York, and he had 9 co-sponsors. Well, when it was introduced during the 112th Congress, it received no votes, so then it died. Well, Representative Engel did not want to give up, and in the very next Congress, the 113th, he reintroduced it, but then again it died. And as you can see, it had only 7 co-sponsors this time. So then he wants to try again for a third time, and he did so in 2016 in the 114th Congress, and it only had 3 co-sponsors this time, and once again, it died in Congress. So this act that would federally prohibit employers from being able to access social media accounts did not make it through to become a thing. But these are states with their version of the SNOPA Act. And as you can see, Kentucky is not one of them. So the yellow states, I should have put a key up here, but the yellow states are the ones that have enacted some type of state law saying that employers cannot view your social media accounts. So Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, other surrounding states do not require that or still allow that. So so an employer could very well ask you for your social media accounts and passwords. And what I found during my research is if you choose not to give them your social media account passwords, they can even dismiss you from the job.
I'm back again.
Okay.
So you're saying that the Urban League can ask me for my social media password, and if I don't give them that information, they can dismiss me from the employment?
They could.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that's what you were saying.
That is what I'm saying, and I am about to give a legal perspective. So I wanted to, just test the legality of this. Like, this doesn't sound right. So you're saying that somebody can intrude on my personal life, my privacy, and ask me for my social media accounts? So I asked attorney Matt Lockaby of the Lockaby Law Firm in Lexington. He's an employment lawyer about this. And so he gave some advice. He was saying for his clients, he would advise that if they do want to conduct a social media background check, be very cautious because of things like, somebody could say it's discrimination if they find certain information, especially about a candidate. So for employers, he suggests that you should wait until after the interview. That way you won't be privy to potential discriminatory information like skin color, disabilities, religious views, and so on. And since this is legal for employers to look at your social media, he advises for employees and candidates to not do anything that could lead to repercussions, especially while using workplace equipment. So why would employers want to check candidates' social media? And what I found is that they want to ensure candidates have a professional online persona, as I stated earlier. They want to make sure that a candidate will be a good fit for the company. They want to get a glimpse inside of a candidate's personality beyond the resume. And they want to look for information supporting a candidate's qualifications for the job. So what is the number one, well, the top 3 social media pages that employers like to check? They like to look at LinkedIn, number 1, because LinkedIn is viewed as a secondary resume, followed by Facebook and Twitter to try to see more about you personally. So they look at LinkedIn to try to get a professional outlook of you, and then Facebook and Twitter to see how you are as an individual. And I grabbed this quote from Matt Earhard. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He's a senior partner at the Summit Group. He says, when I check a candidate's Facebook or Twitter, my aim is more to get a sense of them as a person than to look for damaging information. So a lot of employers are not really trying to look for bad information. They're just trying to get to know you. And if they come across bad information, then that may turn them off, which brings me to my next thing. So what your social media could reflect to some employers. So these are things that turn employers off. So if you have these on your social media pages and you're looking for another career, you're looking for another opportunity somewhere, you're trying to get into certain organizations, these are things that you might want to take off of your page. So the number 1, provocative or inappropriate photos, videos, or information. This is part of the survey that was given by Career Builder out of those 1,000 employers and hiring managers. So 40% of them, about 40% of them were turned off by provocative information. The next highest is information about drinking or use of drugs. The next is criminal behavior. And then you can see some of the other things that they don't like either. So anything that's discriminatory, they do not like. Lying about qualifications, and bad mouthing employers is on there too. So bad mouthing a previous employer, you might just be venting, just like we saw the young lady, I forgot what state she was in. She was bad mouthing the cheerleading team. She ended up, winning that, the Supreme Court ruled in her favor. But, even though that went well for her, colleges, employees, things like that, they may, think twice, because with bad mouthing, nobody really likes dirty laundry. And you might try to tarnish their name too. So that might make you a liability, and they may not want to hire you off of these things.
Got it. I have another coming back with a question.
Yes.
Let me ask you, do you know what types of businesses check social media more often? Is it like government type jobs? Is it, the minimum wage type jobs? What, do you have any information as to who?
Yes. So I asked that question to Mr. Lockaby, the employment attorney, and he said it's mostly jobs that are more white collar, more professional services jobs that require people to really be in front of people. Those are the ones that check. The ones that are least likely to check social media are warehouse jobs, construction sites. So the labor intensive jobs are least likely to do that. But if you're having to dress up, if you're having to, white collar jobs, that's probably who's going to check the social media.
Thanks, that's good information.
So employees, the reason somebody might be like, well, why does that matter if I have that on my page? What does that have to do with my employment status? Well, some employers could translate that to ethics violations and deviance. And, because if you're doing this online, you may do this on the job. And here are some common ethics violations and deviances. Time theft. So if you're constantly posting on your social media and things, then, you could do that on the job, viewing non-related work websites or spending time sending emails to friends. Misconduct. Sexual harassment, discriminatory practices. Those are things that, you know, are ethics violations, deviance, aggressive behavior. If you're harassing somebody, intimidating somebody, open hostility to your coworkers, unproductive behavior. One thing that was on that list was lying about your sickness, and you post about it. Like, you say that you're sick, but then you go ahead and post and say what you're doing for the day. That is unproductive behavior. So these are things that employers want to try to avoid altogether. Also, when I spoke to the attorney, he was saying that Kentucky employers, and I guess it's employers everywhere, but Kentucky employers especially, are charged with keeping a safe workplace, not just for, you know, OSHA purposes, but one that is free of harassment and bullying and intimidation and things like that. So you don't want to have people to bring that into the workplace. So this is what your social media, if you have some of these things, this is what it could reflect to employers. So profanity. Some people are like, it's not a big deal. Well, a 2012 Career Builder survey found that 81% of employers think that profanity is unprofessional. It shows immaturity, a lack of control, and makes the employee look less intelligent. If you're somebody that's very opinionated, you always have to say something. Opinions could come off as divisive and could make prospective employees seem more argumentative and less cooperative. Plagiarism. Some people, you know, they don't necessarily think that it's plagiarism because it's not like they're writing a paper, but they find some really great information, some great quotes, they post it on their page, and it seems as though that it was theirs. It reflects a lack of integrity and competence as an employee. If you lie about your qualifications, you say that you're really great in communication, but you're really not, and that's evident on your page, then you're seen as deceptive. And speaking of communication, poor grammar and spelling is embarrassing. It affects your credibility and sends a message of laziness and incompetence.
I'm back again. This one, poor spelling and grammar. I've noticed more poor spelling and grammar since social media has been around, and it's being accepted.
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't say that it's being accepted. I think that you know, people are just in a hurry, and when you do say something about it, people are like, "Oh, I know what's wrong. I'm just in a hurry. I'm just really fast." People are not going back and checking. But I do know with employers that is something that they do look at. So if you're just using your social media just personally, and you know, you don't really care about it, that's one thing. But if you're trying to put yourself out here and market yourself for a career, a job change, you should definitely go back and check your spelling and grammar. I know now on Facebook, they put red lines under words, and also, who else does that? I'm not sure if Instagram does that, but it would be wise to plan out your thoughts. Maybe write it out in a notepad first on your phone, because I know on my notepad, I have an iPhone, it does say if there's words that are spelled incorrectly. And then, like, if I'll write out my post, then, you know, I can go back and look at it and change it around. And then also there's things like Grammarly. Grammarly you can get put on your computer, and if you're using your computer, that can help you too. So just double check, because, you know, first impressions last.
because I was thinking that texting, where people shortcutting texting all the time, and that's where I was going with when I said it leads to acceptance. So,
Oh, okay. Yes. I guess it really depends. I don't know exactly what the employers were referring to, if it was the shortcut of words or if it was the blatant like misspelling of words, because there's sometimes when people use the wrong homonym, for example, there. Some people, they might say that this is their book, but instead of putting THEIR, they put THERE. And I think that's what they're looking for, not necessarily if they're saying, you know, I love you, and then you put just the letter U. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's more so, you know, because think about it, a lot of jobs are online. They're doing marketing, they're doing, presentations and things like that. So their information needs to be correct. They need to use the correct grammar, the correct spelling. I did find in my research that punctuation wasn't necessarily an issue. I mean, it is something they look at, but they're more forgiving of that. But they want to make sure that they have somebody that can represent their brand well. And if their brand is something that prides themselves on, having correct spelling and grammar, then they want to make sure that their employees do the same.
Thank you. I'm disappearing again.
Oh, you're welcome. If you don't mind, I see some chats popped up. I cannot see it.
One of them said it's all about your brand. You represent your brand every day, every second of every day. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, that's what they said it in a couple of different ways, but that's what they were talking about.
Okay. All right. And then lastly, drugs and alcohol. That was something high on the turnoff list. And if you're on social media, you've probably seen it before where people are just going out here. Some people are doing drugs online. Some people are, drinking heavily and things like that. Showing the misuse of alcohol and drugs among U.S. workers creates costly medical, social, and other problems. So if you're displaying, especially if this is repeated action, it could possibly show addiction. And so addiction can be costly for employers. Some other research that I found suggests that, having a glass of wine or drinking a beer every now and then, they're not really worried about that. It's more so the harder drugs are really showing, like the alcohol abuse or inappropriate behavior. Like I think one thing was saying, you shouldn't show you doing body shots. That type of thing is frowned upon. But if you did want to just have a sip of wine on your Wine Down Wednesday, there's no hurt in that. And then also for those who may be battling addiction, the research that I found suggests that you should not necessarily document that process if you are trying to look for a job. Like I know it helps some people, other people encourages other people to get help as well, but they didn't really give an explanation. But they were saying, maybe you shouldn't document the road to recovery, as maybe some employers may not be as I don't want to say forgiving of that, but they might not be as understanding. So yes, but drugs and alcohol could create an issue, and most companies have a drug-free policy. So at this point, some people are like, you know what, throw the entire social media away. Like, I don't even want to deal with it anymore. I'm just going to throw it away if I'm looking for a job. I'm going to delete everything. But no, don't do that. The reason why, 3 reasons. Employers want to see that somebody has an online presence. 57% of employers said that they were far less likely to call somebody in if that person was an online ghost. What are you hiding? If you can't be found online, you're seen as shady. Candidates are seen as untrustworthy if they cannot be seen in the public eye. And even if you delete your social media, employers have experts who are equipped to still gather information about you, even with a deleted profile. There's different ways that they can get it. There's different caches that they can go through. So nothing that you delete is really deleted, especially if when you had it up and people screenshot you and, screen record, those things are still out there. So instead of deleting your social media, you should do some of these steps. Number 1, you should Google yourself. This will give you an idea of what needs to be changed or removed. Then go ahead and remove negative and embarrassing posts and tags. Sometimes it's not you that posted, it's other people that post things on your behalf. And that's something that employers look at. Like, what are your friends saying about you? What are they tagging you in? So anything that might portray you in a bad light, get rid of it. Number 3, if you want to have a private account, you should do that, but still also have a public account for the purpose of searching for professional opportunities, being a part of organizations, things like that. So make separate private personal accounts. And you can set, like on Facebook, you can set parameters for who you want to see things. It can be public, it could be friends of friends, it could be only you, however you want to do it. You can set those parameters. The fourth thing you should do is upload professional profile pictures. That is the one thing on Facebook and on LinkedIn too, that is public, is your profile picture. And that's usually the first impression that an employer gets of you while online. So make sure that you have an image that's not necessarily, it could be a selfie, but a nice professional image. I encourage everybody, I encourage my clients to go ahead and get professional headshots. And you should get those done at least every 2 to 3 years. And then number 5, you should curate your public social pages. So you should have a positive, tailored social media presence. That is ideal. I'm going to talk about a little bit more about what employers are, looking for. Like I said before, they're not trying to find bad things about people on there. It's just sometimes they come across them. But I'll talk about this more later. But they want to see that you have knowledge of the industry in which you're trying to go. So if you're trying to get a job in the banking field, if you are posting content about banking or have relative information that can fall in line with that, then they want to see that. So as the person in the chat mentioned earlier, your personal brand, make sure that your personal brand aligns with where you're trying to go. So what employers want to see. 44% of hiring managers and employees have discovered content on a candidate's social profile that has caused them to actually hire the person. So they want to see that your background information supports your professional qualifications. So what you put on your resume, they want to see on your Facebook page, on your LinkedIn, on your Twitter, that you do have those skills, that you say that you're great in communication, that you're doing things like presentations about Workforce Wednesday, or you're doing things like writing different posts, you're doing blogs, so they want to see that your skills match up with what you said. They want to see that you.
I have a question that.
Yes.
No, I had a question that somebody posted. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It says, how do you feel about Facebook frames that support one thing or another? That doesn't mean anything.
How do I personally feel about it, or how do employers feel about it?
No, I guess, how do you feel about it? It was, how do you feel about Facebook frames that support one thing or another?
I mean, I personally, so this is just Kia talking. Do you?
First of all, Kia, for us who don't use social media, what is a Facebook frame?
Okay, for those who don't use Facebook, a frame is, so on your profile picture, that public picture that anybody can see, you can put something around it that supports things like
Black Lives Matter or whatever.
Yes, Black Lives Matter. A lot of people, with the vaccine, I got vaccinated. Whenever it's political season, supporting one candidate over another. Okay. Those types of things, Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthdays, anniversaries, you name it, it's probably out there. If it's not, you can actually create your own. I did that once. So Facebook frames, I personally think, whatever, but in putting on a hat as an employer, as putting on a hat as somebody that is, trying to be neutral with this, I think that, well, we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but I know that politics especially is something that employers kind of cringe about, depending on how radical you are. They try to avoid, the politics. Some employers try to avoid heavy political people, because it can cause conflict, and it can cause those disagreements in the workplace that could lead to ethical violations and deviances and things like that. So it really depends on where you're at. So for my viewing myself as an employer, I would do research on the company and see where they stand. And, maybe they are swinging a particular way. And if that's how you feel, then maybe showing that would make you more likely to fit in the culture there, and it could be a good thing. But if they try to be neutral and stay away from certain politics and you display that, that may not be a good thing. So go back and do the research on that particular company, and then, you know, adjust accordingly. That's my advice. But going.
No, that was good advice. I didn't mean to stop you in the middle of your presentation because I didn't want you to lose, but that question popped up, so I thought I better.
Oh, no, I appreciate the questions, and feel free to stop me at any time with questions that people may have.
Okay.
So another thing that they want to see is professional images. So those pictures that I was talking about, professional headshots. There's plenty of people out here. I don't know where people are tuning in from, but if you're in the Lexington area, there's plenty of people that do headshots, myself included, shameless plug. And so you can ask them to do those. I know so many different photographers that could assist you with that. And it just really makes the difference to have those professional photos, especially if you're, in my case, an entrepreneur. People want to see those professional images on your website, on your social media pages. It just makes you look a little bit more credible. And then employers also want to see that a candidate showed creativity. And I'm going to get into that in just a little bit. So it's not all negative. They do want to see positives as well. So what positives could reflect? You're cultured. Excuse me. More than half of hiring managers say they're looking to see if a candidate would be a good fit with the corporate culture, what I was just mentioning. So do you share insightful information? Do you have a sensible, professional looking photo? Are you well connected in your field? Do you appear to be social and outgoing? Do you look like you would fit in with the team? If your social media reflects that, then that's a positive. If you show that you're skilled, if you show that you're, if you say that you're skilled in communication, do your posts reflect that you're articulate, that you share intelligent posts, that you're friendly? Creativity, that's a big thing for employers. They want to see that you think outside of the box. So if you have a special talent, a hobby, something that you're passionate about, make sure that you include that in your social media posting. So I wanted to get a local perspective, and I reached out to a few folks. And so what I found was interesting was a lot of the major employers in Lexington, Fayette County do not do social media background checks. And I'm not going to say exactly, well, no, I'm not going to say who those employers are because I didn't get like a full interview with them. But yeah, a lot of the major employers do not check backgrounds. But I did have the opportunity to speak with 3 individuals, Liz from Lexmark, and I asked her, would she rule out a candidate? She's an HR director. I asked her, would she rule out a candidate for inappropriate content found on their social media? And she was saying, no, I'm not going to rule that out, because she wanted to give them an opportunity to explain themselves if they had enough qualifications to make it to the interview phase. She was saying responsible employers are going to go to somebody to get the full story. Someone who's very direct about their beliefs are going to say what they mean. And when I was speaking to Attorney Lockerbie about the legality of it, I know that he runs his own practice. So I wanted to know, when he's looking at attorneys to hire on or other people, paralegals to hire to his team, would he conduct a social media page audit? And he said yes. You know, he did say that he didn't exactly know how effective it would be, but he would. He's looking for red flags. So posting inappropriate content, threats, hostile, anything to render them unfit for the workplace. He's looking for the worst of the worst, because as an employer, he is obligated to keep a safe working space. And then my good friend Bob, I'm not going to say where he works, but if you know Bob, you know where he works. You can kind of tell by the background. So he's not speaking on behalf of them. He's speaking on behalf of himself. I summarized his comments. He was saying that he's very forgiving of college students, because at that particular organization, they hire a lot of younger people, and he realizes that they may post some stupid things. And also Liz said the same thing. There's a lot of younger people coming in straight out of college into Lexmark. And sometimes they, you know, you're just young. Your brain doesn't fully develop until what, I think 27. So sometimes you might post some things that you could regret later. But Bob does not believe certain things on social media are reflective of on the job presence. Somebody can use an explicative, a well-written one at that, but that doesn't mean that they're going to say those things on the job. So I just wanted to give that perspective from some Lexington employers and managers, which I thought was interesting because this kind of contrasts from what the, you know, the research is saying, what the career builder research is saying. And then also another thing that Liz said was whatever is public is fair game. So if you have something that's public on your page, somebody can easily look at it because as we discussed, you really don't know who's looking at your page. And I say that to say, I asked her for a picture and she didn't give me one. So I went to the public and I found one and used that, but I hope that picture is okay. Hey. So, okay, before I get into that slide, let me give a disclaimer. So not only did I reach out to some employers, I wanted to reach out to some young professionals. So I have a pretty extensive network that stretches beyond Kentucky. And I actually interviewed two of my friends, one living in the Washington, D.C. area and one living in the Reno, Nevada area to get their take on employers checking social media. And so I want to say that these videos are kind of choppy because they were much longer and we don't have that much time. So if you see it, you know, doing a lot of jump cuts, that's because I was just trying to get straight to the point. So the first interview that I did is of my good friend, Jeffrey Epting, who is an educator, a doctoral student, and also a musician. And then the second one is of my good sister, my sorority sister, Tabney Dozier, who is an Emmy Award winning journalist and an anchor at Colo 8 TV in Reno, Nevada. Hey, I am here with Jeffrey Epting Jr., who is a musician, an entertainer, but also an educator, has been an educator for several years. And so, Jeff, thank you for speaking with me.
I'm so excited. I mean, I definitely really want to talk about this subject, working in education as well as being a musician and being in the entertainment field it's been interesting.
For yourself personally, do you tailor your social media to, kind of shield some things, or are you really free with your accounts?
I would have to say that because I wear so many hats, I do have to tailor my social media. I do like to, I can say that, I'm really free with the things that I post. Like I do post how I feel on my social media, but I also have to be very conscious of the different hats that I wear. I mean, of course, I'm in school. I'm also a doctoral student. So the public eye sees me a lot. So there's certain things that I can post, certain things that I can't post. There's certain things where yes, I feel very strongly about that, but I don't think it would be wise for me to post that because it would really affect my brand.
So have you sat on any type of boards or anything where you're reviewing candidates? And if so, have you looked at social media?
Yes, actually, when I'm going to put this out there, I am a Kappa, and there have been times where I've had to review their packets. One of the things that I had to do in reviewing their packets was review their social media. I'm looking, how do you present yourself?
During your search of the social media, what were some things that turned you off?
There was a particular person who had some pretty radical views on their social media. They were pretty just out there. And I'm like, I don't think this will be good for the brand. This is kind of very violent. It's not what we're looking for.
I think the percentage is about 58% of employers are checking social media. What do you think about that? Do you think that that's fair? Do you think this is the way of the future? Just what are your thoughts about employers checking social media?
Sometimes I don't think it's fair, but I also think it is fair. I have to put on my leadership hat really quick. Because if I take off my leadership hat, and I'm talking from the Jeffrey standpoint, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair that you are looking at my social media and judging me off of my social media. But if I put on my leader hat and talking from a leadership standpoint, I am looking at your social media because I'm also looking at like what type of brand are you representing, and if I bring you into my brand, are you going to represent my brand correctly?
Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey, for your insight. I definitely appreciate it. I failed to mention that you are coming to me from Washington, D.C. So this is from a D.C. perspective by way of Delaware, by way of Florida, by way of Chicago.
I'm from everywhere, baby. I'm from everywhere.
Yes. So thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hello, I am here with Tabney Dozier, Emmy Award-winning journalist. She is an anchor at Colo 8 TV in Reno, Nevada. Tabney, how are you? Thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. I really appreciate you asking for my insight.
My first question for you, Tab, is do you agree with employers checking social media as a part of a background check? And why, if you do agree with it?
I personally do believe that it is a good idea for employers to peruse social media as a part of the background checking process for when a hiring manager is looking at a prospective employee. And I really just think that's a sign of the time.
Do you tailor your social media accounts so that they look a certain way? Or are you pretty free with your social media postings?
Yes, I do tailor my social media accounts to look a certain way. I just personally, I do not think it's respectful for me to be a news anchor and giving people very critical information. And then I'm outside without a mask. And then I'm at a crowded restaurant. And then I'm, going against what kind of information that I present. So I do. The second part is comfort, because I don't need the entire public and everyone that follows me to know about updates with my family or, private family moments or private personal moments.
If you were on a committee or looking at potential candidates for whatever, would you, and if you're looking at their social media, what would be some red flags?
Potential red flags. The easiest would be disrespect. Any type of remarks that are degrading or belittling to a certain race or a culture or, a member of the LGBTQ plus community, or if there's some bias, right? So in my world, that would also be a red flag, because you wouldn't want someone that is leaning one way or the other in my field of neutrality.
Tab, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about your views on social media, more specifically employers looking at social media. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Kia. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate you remembering and thinking of me all the way across the country. Best of luck to you.
Hey. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, did my video go off?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it's off.
Okay, well, I saw something pop up, but okay. All right, so now I'm gonna try to rush through this since we're short on time. So what your social media could reflect about you in general. I'm not gonna go through all of this, but I'll just read a couple. So if you post a lot, selfies, for example, if all of your selfies have a filter, if you're always having this perfect image all the time, full face of makeup, well manicured all the time, that could come off as you're insecure, or you're not real, you're too into appearance. If all you do is debate, if you're just shooting off your opinions and you don't shy away from varying beliefs, you always have to say something under somebody else's post that you don't agree with, you could come off as, you're too political, all you do is debate. You could come off as a negative Nancy or Debbie Downer. I don't know the equivalent for the for the guys, but if you're always, talking about negativity, if you're always like, woe is me, if you are posting things that are supposed to be inspiring, but you're just really posting to boast, you could be a show off. You're always posting your grandiose adventures, the locations, the vacation spots, your relationship, etc. This is how it could come off to people in general and not just employers. You could be drama filled. If you spend a lot of time making subtweets or speaking on other people's lives, and you may not have a filter, if you just post without much thought, you tend to post the first thing that comes to mind. Some people could think you may not have anything better to do if you're constantly posting and engaging on social media, especially all day, and you're frequently documenting the majority of the aspects of your life. Like from, you know, if you're always posting like, hey, I'm at the grocery store, hey, I'm in the bathroom, hey, I'm doing this, hey, I'm doing that. If all you do is post memes and GIFs or GIFs and things like that, then they might think that you play around too much. However, on the flip side, see, I flipped it. People may think that you have a heart, you know, if you're posting worthy projects and giving to charities, that you're social, you make your way out to various events, that you're friendly, you're approachable online and in person. You have amicable conversations in the comment sections. You celebrate others. That's a big thing. Employers want to be able to see not only about you, but how you interact with other people, because you're typically working as a team. So what do you think that your social media projects? Now that we've gone through this presentation, I'd asked earlier what you thought. Now, after seeing that, what do you think your social media projects? Because I'm pretty sure there's somebody that has done some things that they may not realize has come off possibly negatively. So if there's any messages in the chat, then please let me know. But moving on, so your personal brand, that is a widely recognized and largely uniform perception or impression of an individual based on their experience, expertise, competencies, actions, and or achievements within a community, industry, or the marketplace at large. So your personal brand should align with other brands you wish to associate with. And your social media pages should reflect your personal brand. And at minimum, you should be able to answer the following: who you are, your story, what do you value, what are you representing, and who you're targeting. And if you cannot answer these questions, I would love to help you. I would love to help you clarify your brand. I have a QR code here for a branding session. If you would like to scan that, I offer branding, marketing sessions, as well as just business consultation and so on. I'll have more information in just a little bit, so you can check out my website and see everything that I offer. But your personal brand is very important, and you should have that defined. So here's some other things to keep in mind. One, your audience is larger than your followers. So some people think, oh, I only have 300 friends. So you think only those 300 people are accessing your information, especially on social media. That is not the case. People can share or view your information even if it is private. When I was speaking to Liz at Lexmark, she was telling me how she did a presentation with some college students and showed how their private pages really weren't that private. She was able to go in and get information because her son was friends with somebody that was in that group, and she was able to see his stuff. And then similarly, when I was in college, my media ethics professor did the same thing. She was able to pull people's stuff up and she put it on the screen in front of everybody. There's a way to get around it. So just because you only have a certain amount of people that are your friends, that doesn't mean that the broader world can't see your stuff. Number two, your network could cost you your net worth. Be careful about who you associate with. Employers do judge you on the professional and personal company that you keep. And number three, employers want to see how you manage your work-life balance. So they're going to look at your online activities as a whole to get a glimpse of that. So to recap, it's legal for employers to look and check your social media accounts. And in some states, they can ask you for your passwords. It would be wise to have a public social media account if you're looking for a job so that employers can search you. You should Google yourself and make sure your social media presence is acceptable. it would make a great impression if the content you show that you post shows skill, culture, creativity, and industry relevance. And understand your personal brand and make sure that it aligns with the brands that you want to work with or for. So after hearing this information, is there anything you're planning on changing in your social media? Yes or no? And you can put that answer in the chat. Do I have any questions?
There's one, someone said, Anissa said, yes, I need a professional headshot. So how can they get in contact with you to get that type of thing?
Well, I'm glad you said that. So here's my contact information. I'm here to talk about your branding needs and help you lead to a pathway of success. So that is my business phone number right there. You can email me at info@11keysmedia.com. You can go to my website, which is this QR code, and that will show you, oh, this is the 11keysmedia.com website, not my Kia Arnold website. And then if you want to find me on LinkedIn, just type in Kia Arnold and you can connect with me on there. So scan that QR code. There should be a link to get to my booking site, and on my booking site, that is how you can get more information about how to book a headshot session with me, Anissa.
Great information, Ms. Kia. I enjoyed the presentation and thank you for presenting on Workforce Wednesday. And I'd like to thank Truist for sponsoring Workforce Wednesday also.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you again to Urban League of Lexington. All
right, with that, we're going to end this session. And again, thanks for Ms. Kia Arnold. And again, thanks to Truist Bank to make this happen.